Diamonds to Pebbles. Chapter 4. Running around and serving tea to the ladies left behind at the castle proved to be no fun. The whole time, Evelyn was ridiculed by the women, who assumed she had a deformed face or had been raised by wolves. When it was announced that King Ardis's party returned, Evelyn rejoiced. Of course, then she remembered what came next on the schedule. She would have to suit him and Prince Lycos up for their tournament. When she was called down to the grounds where the tournament was going to be held, she walked at a slow pace. As soon as she reached the grounds, she sped up upon seeing Jade with the other favored girls who went on the picnic. Quickly, she located King Ardis's tent with a green banner in front of the entrance with the emblem of a bear and 2 roses. As Evelyn entered, Prince Lycos clicked his tongue, unpleased by her presence. He tossed his armor at her feet, ready to get it over with. Lycos hated that his usual servants were off helping the other noblemen because he doubted Evelyn knew the first thing about armor. Thankfully, Evelyn had helped her brother with his armor, so she wasn't entirely clueless. That being said, Dorian armor was not nearly as heavy. She struggled slightly and was grateful that neither Ardis nor Lycos made any remarks. After putting the last piece of Lycos' armor in place, he pulled her in close. King Ardis listened and watched from the corner of his eye as Prince Lycos said to Evelyn, "You made it too tight, Aurlira." Evelyn moved her hand to the straps and tightened them some more. "I don't want your armor falling off, Your Highness." He moved away from her as if she had a contagious disease and stormed out of the tent. Now it was just Evelyn and Ardis, and all was quiet aside from the muffled noise from outside. Ardis stood from the chair he was waiting in and handed Evelyn the first piece of armor. She took it and began strapping it on. As she worked, he asked, "So, what did you learn while I was gone? What do you think?" They were all irritated and jealous that they weren't invited, and they proceeded to take their anger out on me. They spoke of nothing but my appearance when I came around with their tea. I only wish I had made it scorching hot so they'd burn their tongues. Of course, I am spying on them and reporting their emotionally predictable reactions to you, Your Majesty. So whether they know it or not, their cruel words are justified, she said, unable to hide her frustration. I see. Ardis felt a twist in his stomach. Evelyn's tone matched his sister's when she scolded him, and it struck him hard. It seemed like he was constantly offending the people around him without meaning to. "You don't approve of my approach." Evelyn fastened his straps just as tightly as Prince Lycos. "I understand the why, but people say stupid things when they're heartbroken." Ardis caught her wrist before she could cut off his circulation. Her eyes immediately jumped to his. He had planned to remark on her boldness and warn her of the dangers if she continued to speak so freely, but an entirely different thought left his mouth. "And is your heart broken?" Evelyn did not speak, but she did not need to. Ardis could see the pain in her eyes, which appeared darker in the shadows of her hood. Then there was the tremble of her hand. Ardis imagined a backstory for this girl, one in which she was left at an altar and then ran away in shame. But Evelyn's heartbreak was not caused by a lover. It had cracked with the death of her mother and shattered once she realized her father was gone too. "Forgive me," Ardis whispered, "I may be a king, but your story is your own." He forced a smile when they heard the sound of a trumpet from outside. He patted her on the head like it was the equivalent of rubbing a rabbit's foot. "Wish me luck, Allie," he said as he grabbed his helmet. He walked out into the open where the sun lit the arena and the crowded benches surrounding it. He waved toward all the ladies as they cheered for him. Prince Lycos stood with the other men and was clearly envious that the women had not welcomed him as grandly as they had welcomed Ardis. Ardis greeted each of the men participating in the tournament and saved the most important people for last. At the very top of the stands was Ardis's sister, mother, and father. He waved to them and blew his sister a kiss. She smirked at his confidence, but inside she felt a bubble of nerves. Competition between her brother and cousin never proved to be fruitful. The two men always became fiercely aggressive towards each other. The tournament was bad enough on its own, but now that they were seeking the approval of the ladies within the crowd, it was even worse. Evelyn came out of the tent and studied Artis's movements, wondering how she hoped to gain his affection as she was. Her eyes then glanced at the multitude of ladies who also watched him as she did. They all had their reasons to cozy up to the young king, and she was no exception. She did not love him, but she hoped she would learn to, because it was apparent that love was what he desired above all else. Otherwise, he wouldn't care how the women spoke about him in honest conversation. Suddenly, Artis's gaze returned hers. She flushed, embarrassed that he caught her staring, until she realized he was waiting for his horse as all the other men already stood next to theirs. His head tilted in the white stallion's direction, giving her the silent command to bring it to him. Evelyn untied the horse from its hitching post and gently guided the beautiful horse over to its master. She had little experience with horses, but she knew she wanted this one to be safe. Even though she wasn't certain about Artis's character, she still admired his white steed. When she reached King Artis, he mounted his horse. She held the reins up to him, blinded by the sun reflecting off his armor. He put on his helmet and nodded to Evelyn as she stepped back. He rode off, kicking dirt up. Before the first event started, Evelyn ran over to the stands to sit next to Chef Reuben. He bounced in anticipation, thrilled to finally be able to get out of the kitchen, even if that meant watching a bloody mess. The melee event was never a pretty sight, especially since it was every night for himself. From the top of the stands, Princess Rosemary stood and wished the knights luck as they proved themselves capable of defending their land and family. At the end of her brief speech, the tournament commenced. Horses rushed forward as the men held up their dull swords. Everyone was soon on the edge of their seats as knights tumbled off their steeds. "I can't believe this," Evelyn said, gawking as one man took a heavy blow directly to the head, leaving a dent in his helmet. Chef Reuben nodded in agreement. "I know what you mean. I wanted to be a knight when I was a boy, but after I watched a tournament, I gratefully learned how to cook instead." They winced as a knight was knocked off his horse and then trampled. The melee continued until 2 knights were left. Shocking no one, the 2 were King Artis and Prince Lycos. Both had gotten down from their horses and fought on foot. Most of the other wounded men have been removed from their path. Without any hesitation, they fought each other with immense force. Soon they grew so hot they both took off their helmets, their dark hair sticking to their foreheads. The ladies swooned, but Evelyn couldn't tell who was fanning over whom. It was clear, though, that some of the girls were more interested in Prince Lycos than King Artis. She could hardly understand why. Perhaps they saw something in the haughty prince that she didn't. The men's movements turned sluggish as the fight continued. Lycos bashed at Artis's shield, steadily chipping away at the wooden surface. It was then that Evelyn understood why some women preferred Lycos over the king. Not only was he strong, but the man was aggressive and fought for what he wanted. No doubt he took a similar strategy when approaching women. Meanwhile, Artis endured the beating and waited it out behind his shield. Evelyn wondered how much more the young king could take. However, as soon as Lycos took a breather, Artis rammed into him, knocking Lycos to the ground. The prince's sword slipped from his grasp, and Artis kicked it further away, placing his boot on his cousin's breastplate. The end of King Artis's blade pointed down at Prince Lycos. An amused smirk formed on Artis's lips. "Do you yield?" Lycos groaned. "Yes, you pitiful pile of—" Now. "Ladies are present," he said, helping Lycos to his feet. "I'll get you next time," Prince Lycos promised with a grin, surprising Evelyn at how quickly the men were friends again. She observed the prince as he shuffled off to the closest medics. As for King Artis, he climbed the stands while everyone clapped for him. He went straight to his older sister, whose face clearly displayed her relief. She hugged him and presented him with his reward, a golden clasp featuring a bear design. When artists started to come down from the stands, Reuben nudged Evelyn. "He'll need your help after all that fighting. Better see what he wants." Evelyn thanked Reuben for the reminder and hurried off, collecting the young king's horse. She guided it to him, and Artis used the horse as support as they walked back to his tent. He went inside to rest while she attended to the white horse. Once the horse was tied up, she checked on the worn-out king. He sat in his cushioned chair, slouched in a manner that would have received the stink eye from Evelyn's instructors back in Derwin. Evelyn quickly poured him a cup of water from a pitcher on the table next to him. He gulped down 5 cups, then poured the 6th one on his head. She watched him with a blank expression, not knowing what to do or say. Finally, he spoke, "Help me take some of this armor off. I feel trapped." Evelyn did as she was told, taking pieces of the heavy armor off his body. Once the clunkier parts were removed, he relaxed back in his seat. Again, Evelyn didn't know what to do with herself. He noticed the twiddling of her thumbs and instructed her to polish the armor. She sat down on the ground and got to work, scrubbing the grime and blood off the various pieces. From outside the tent, they heard the whoops of the crowd and the swish of arrows. Evelyn figured they must be competing in archery, and she wondered if Artis was any good with a bow. She knew he was at least competent since she had seen a bow in his room. "Are you not competing in the current event?" she asked, searching the tent for any archery equipment. Artis sat up from his slouched position and groaned from the movement. "Not this time around. The only other event I'm taking part in is jousting. I've got to let Lycos win at something today." Before she could stop herself, she asked, "Why?" The king's eyes crinkled a little. "Why let him win?" "Well, I'm not letting him, per se, but it is his area of expertise. You could say he knew he was fighting a losing battle during the melee as well. We've had squabbles in the past, so now we choose to compete with one another in events where one can humble the other." Evelyn understood what he meant. "I see. Jealousy can break apart friendships fairly easily, can't it?" Though she didn't say any more, Evelyn thought of Jade. There were times Evelyn longed for Jade's life, skills, and fairy magic. Now, more than ever, Evelyn felt less than Jade. There was an unspoken jealousy that existed because Jade shared similar feelings. Evelyn had always been regarded as the pretty one, the mermaid princess with golden hair. So, what better way to secure the relationship than by reminding each other of their beautiful differences, whether that be weaknesses or strengths? "Yes, it can," Artis whispered, ushering in a solemn silence. It only felt like a short moment of peace before Artis's break was over. The last event of the tournament was announced, and the king adorned his armor once more with Evelyn's help. This time, a large shield was strapped to his left shoulder, bearing Hamilton's chest. Outside, they found Lycos already mounted on his horse. While he was from the same family as Artis, Lycos' shield had a wolf instead of a bear. The prince had a wide grin, causing King Artis to shake his head in disbelief. "Why do you look so eager, huh?" "Because it's my time to stomp on your pride, great king." "Allie," King Artis stated, "my horse." Evelyn untied his horse and handed the reins over to him as his eyes kept in contact with his cousin's. The tension wasn't hateful, but it sparked with heated determination. One of them was going to get hurt again. The jousting matches proceeded one after the other. Both King Artis and Prince Lycos rose from the bottom to the top, culminating in a face-off between them. From across the field, they looked at each other before pulling their visors down. The match began, and they raced to the other side. Evelyn watched with Reuben, holding her breath. Like any other event in the tournament, death wasn't unheard of, and injuries were almost a guarantee. Galloping along either side of the rail, the men charged ahead on their horses. Their lances lowered as they neared each other. The crowd gasped in awe as the lances cracked, and Reuben grimaced next to Evelyn. That was not a good start for our king. Evelyn frowned, following Artis's movements as another lance was given to him. Why not? They both hit each other, didn't they? Yes, but the prince struck his shield while he only managed to strike an arm. He'll receive a lower score. How can you even tell from here? Reuben wiggled his eyebrows at her. My trained eyes, of course. Just watch closely. Evelyn narrowed her eyes, hoping to spot what Reuben had seen as the men charged again. She saw that he was right. Artis wasn't nearly as accurate with the lance as Lycos was. On their last round, the crowd let out a whoop when Lycos managed to hit Artis's helmet, splinting his lance into small pieces. The prince had undoubtedly claimed victory. When Prince Lycos went to claim his reward from Princess Rosemary, Evelyn ran to help King Artis off his horse. Worried for the king, Reuben and the nearby chief herbalist also assisted. Artis staggered on the solid ground and leaned against Evelyn. She nearly toppled over herself, but the chief grabbed the king's other side. Reuben took the white horse away while the chief instructed Evelyn that they must bring the king to his chambers. Together, they gingerly walked to the castle. Once in the king's chambers, they brought Artis to his bed. The king crashed down on the bouncy mattress and tossed his helmet aside. As he began removing other parts of his armor, Evelyn quickly assisted him. All the while, the chief herbalist asked Artis a dozen questions relating to his health and memory. Please, chief. Aside from feeling bruised, I'm fine. But your majesty, your head is fine, Artis reaffirmed, though I'll take dinner here tonight. Inform Reuben accordingly, and you can add whatever medicine you want to the meal. I don't care so long as you stop worrying over me like I'm a child. I take it you will not be at the feast, then? Correct. I've done enough socializing for one day. With that final statement, the chief herbalist and Evelyn leave the king to his solitude. When the king's dinner was ready, Evelyn went back to take it to him. As she entered, she found him lounging on one of the couches with his feet on the table in front of him and a book covering his face. She set the dinner tray down next to his feet and coughed slightly. He made no sudden moves, so she assumed he was asleep. Before she could bring herself to leave, she noticed he hugged his arms over his chest. Quietly, she picked up a heavy cape lying on the ground and placed it on top of him while whispering, "You did well today, Your Majesty. And whatever woman chooses Lycos over you because of one failure is not the woman for you." Evelyn then removed the book from his face, intending to put it aside. Instead, the book fell to the ground when she saw his eyes were wide open. She felt heat at the tip of her ears and on her cheeks. After the day's events and the words he had spoken, the idea of marrying him was far more pleasant than it had been before. It would hardly be a burden at all, even if he were disorganized and overly cautious. Yet, she wasn't prepared for the sudden fluttering in her chest. At the first sign of movement from him, Evelyn fled. She briskly walked the halls, not daring to look back, though it seemed unlikely that he would follow her. Her assignment was complete, and he would enjoy his meal in peace without further pondering her words or actions. Along her walk back to the kitchen, she heard Prince Lycos' voice coming toward her. She frantically searched for an alternative route to avoid him, but the only option was to turn around and face him. The girlish chatter following the prince's voice told her he was with a group of women, making the encounter far more dangerous in Evelyn's mindset, especially if those women were the same ladies from earlier that day. Decidedly, Evelyn spun around and knocked into Artis, who had tracked her down and was just about to announce his presence. "Your Majesty, forgive me," Evelyn gasped, rubbing her nose while taking a step back. "Allie," he began before hearing his cousin's laughter. Artis took Evelyn's hand in his, and he pushed a section of the wall with a large lever that Evelyn wasn't aware could open. They entered the smaller corridor while the wall closed behind them. On the other side, Evelyn realized the mirror only reflected one way. She and Artis could plainly see Lycos and the women trailing him. All of the ladies present had initially been interested in the king. When the group was long gone, Artis tugged at Evelyn's hand, guiding them out of the secret corridor and back into the main hall. Her stomach tightened when he still didn't let go. Artis stared off in the direction where his cousin went and let out a sigh. Despite your words, it still stings to see he won their attention. I suppose they like wolfish men. You would think a woman would want to feel safe. Do you feel safe around me, Allie? Evelyn swallowed, clutching her free hand to her pounding heart. Not particularly, no. Another sigh. I should have known. After all, you wear that hood all the time. He reached forward and tried to remove it. She grabbed onto the hood and kept it in place. He gave up, realizing she wouldn't let him in so easily. So, he focused on what he already knew for certain. He lifted the hand that held hers and stroked his thumb against the back of her remarkably smooth skin. You are no common girl. Who are you really? Evelyn stayed silent, scared to make demands and of her wild feelings for this stranger. Maybe she was diving in too fast, just like her father. Completely blinded by hopes and wishes that weren't realistic. She didn't know if this beating of her heart meant she was falling in love or if she was fearful of what Artis might think. Before he could do or say anything more, she slipped her hand away and tugged her hood down further. She needed to decide what her goal was in staying here and commit to some sort of action. All right then, perhaps a different question. Allie, how might a man capture a woman's heart? Before all this trouble befell her, she might have laughed because she had the same question related to him. She wanted to know what type of woman could convince him to risk war just for the sake of protecting her. I couldn't tell you. However, I heard stargazing is a preferred choice. Many of the women spoke of it during afternoon tea. Why? Is there someone you have in mind? Artis smiled, and it hit differently than the previous one she had seen. Perhaps. And I've had a thought. You should go undercover, steal one of my sister's old dresses, and attend as if you were a guest. What if I refuse? She asked. If you refuse, then I suppose I'll never know if you attended or not. But I'm counting on your presence,